got my second vaccination. I ended up getting it with my mother. Say hello.
Hello.
I guess I just wanted to record the experience to see what it was like. I don't know how comfortable I'll be recording in the actual place, but we'll see. We're getting the Moderna. I'm nervous because I don't want to be sick, but I think I will be. Anyways, I guess we'll update you after we do it and see how we feel. So I feel so. I woke up this morning and I had a very bad headache. I took Tylenol and it seemed to get rid of the headache for the most part. Don't know, when I move around, I feel like there's like a faint hint of a headache there. Maybe like a slight fever this morning when I woke up. I didn't measure it, so it's hard to say. So yeah, I'm feeling so, like I was saying. I stayed in bed for several hours trying to go back to sleep because of the headache. On top of that, every time I rolled over, I couldn't sleep on this arm because of how much pain was on it, just to apply pressure. Other than that though, it really isn't that bad. So where are we right now as far as what I'm reading? About the same thing I've been reading all month, which is The Tale of Genji by Murasaki, I forget the last name. There's a camera out here. And I'm 50% through that, and today is the 28th. I've sped it up from 2 times speed to 2.3, and I have about just shy of 16 hours. Will I finish it before the month is out? Probably not. I need to sit down and do some work, and I can listen to it while I'm doing that because I'm doing some tedious work. It's been a tough month for reading, I'm not gonna lie. This is gonna turn into a sort of my May wrap-up. I'll put it in the title, obviously, because I don't really have enough books. I'll save the official wrap-up towards the end. I'll put a timestamp in for those of you who care. Generally speaking, this month has not been great for reading. When I first got here, I tried keeping a nice pattern of biking. That's really my best way of getting to listen. Normally, like, I have biking at home, but I also have my laundry, I have cleaning, and it's hard to maintain those things when I'm not by myself. And then you couple in the fact that I'm listening to a 72-hour audiobook. This is, I did the math, it's essentially the equivalent of about 2,000 pages of regular text, because like 36 hours, 35 hours is about the length of a Storyline archive book. And if this is 70 hours, then we're talking about much more than the 1,200 pages that is in my edition of Tale of Genji. Small text compressed into a big page. Other than that, I've only read one book, which is How Is Time War? And I'll say I enjoyed that thoroughly. I don't know if it's 5-star, but I will go more into that at the end when I do the wrap-up. It's just unfortunate I'm not reading more. I had so many things I wanted to read this month. It's not just disappointing, it feels like a betrayal, because I said I gave this TBR I was going to do, and I did basically none of it. And I just hate doing that. So I definitely won't be giving a strict TBR for June. In June, I am, actually this weekend, I'm going to include this vlog, I'm going to my dad's, now that I've got my second vaccine. I'm going to go down there for at least a month. When I go home, will really depend on when I can get a rental car, which is easier said than done. Point being is that it's a different environment, so it may or may not still have a negative side effect on my ability to read. But who knows whether or not I'll be able to find a good pattern for myself there, because it's a different environment. So I might be able to read a lot more. It might also be, let me rephrase that, it is definitely partly also the book. I won't pretend I haven't been reading as much, also partly because I've been wanting to do other things. I've listened to so many podcasts this month. I've been watching a lot of TV. I've been catching up on Buffy the Vampire Slayer rewatch. So now I'm into Angel in my rewatch. I'm listening to multiple podcasts about that. But if you like Buffy, check out the Buffy rewatch podcast. Still Pretty is amazing, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, both amazing. Other thing that I've been doing later in the month is I'm back into Lost, which is a rewatch that I started a couple years ago and then stopped, just because the podcast that I'm listening to, The Storm, a Lost rewatch podcast, they were doing it week to week. I didn't have the patience to wait to watch an episode every week, but I also knew I didn't want to listen to them after I hadn't freshly watched it. So I stopped, and now they're almost done. And that podcast is actually really great. They used to do a Game of Thrones podcast, and now it's perfect for Lost because, it's the same sort of mysterious thing. Even knowing what happened, I've forgotten a lot by now, but knowing what's happened, it's just such a great opportunity to talk about what's happening in the show and how it was created. It's a lot of fun. I love rewatch podcasts. And the fact is, I've listened to a lot of that, which suggests like I've had opportunities to listen to the audiobook, and I just haven't. And there's a bigger thing to unpack there when it comes to Tale of Genji, because of the fact that Tale of Genji is huge, and I was surprised when I picked it up because I was enjoying it. I was more engaged than I was expecting to be. It's the story about this nobleman who basically is fuckboy. Like, that's my impression of him. I think he's supposed to be evolving into more than that, but he definitely starts out as essentially a fuckboy. And the book is written like the year 1000, considered to be one of the earliest books ever written. Sorry, one of the earliest, or the earliest novel ever written. And it follows this tale of this nobleman who is like the son of an emperor who loses his rank and essentially has to like regain it. But honestly, that part of the plot, which I think I read in the synopsis, is really a small part of it. It's much more about this man who is very sexual and wants to interact with a lot of women in different ways. And it's essentially exploring his attempts to do that. I feel like every chapter, I wouldn't say it's a different woman, but it's a different step in this process. This book was created over a period of several years or more from this noblewoman who was basically trying to write like a serial for an emperor of some sort to keep him entertained. And it's interesting because like I'm getting somewhat invested in the characters. The problem is because it's serialized, it feels almost repetitive. It's not. This book is highly praised by a lot of people, but to me, things are starting to blend together. It's starting to feel like the same story, even if it's slightly different people. I get the general idea that he just wants to fuck everybody. And I know it's bigger than that. It's much bigger than that, especially because he's supposed to have a bit more depth. He's convinced himself, at least, that when he pursues a woman, it's because he's truly into her. But there is a lot of complications there, and it's interesting from like an intellectual perspective because you have not just our modern day takes on this society and on this character, which really I think taint him as a person, but also wondering what it is the author was trying to do from a critical standpoint of judging this character and men like him in her time, even from her cultural perspective, through the lens of her society. And I do not have what it takes to judge that. I do not have what it takes to like say whether or not it was a good representation of it or if it's right or it's wrong. Like from modern day perspective, there's some things that he does is just blatantly wrong, the way he approaches things. But I mean, it's worth saying that like he is like, it's more polyamorous society, so like going after multiple women, there is a bit of normality there. But then there's other things where even in this story, he goes after a really young woman. He'll talking about really, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a word for it, I don't know what it's called, but basically just setting them up to being a part of their life from a very young age so that he is there and able to manipulate them into loving him. It's not something he's consciously thinking. Obviously, he has a much more noble mindset about it, about how he approaches that, but it's essentially that. He's targeting young women, at least some really young women in cases. There was at least one case where everyone around this child, related to this child, who she is a child, is like 10 years old, says that she's too young. What is this interest that's happening right now? And you might hear defenses that say like, oh, he's not being sexual with her until she's older, but there's grooming is the word. He's clearly grooming her and trying to make her dependent. Like he takes her, he essentially becomes like a father figure. So now she is dependent on him. It's not just the age dynamic, which has a problem with power and consent, but it's the grooming and it's the being in control of her. And it's just so problematic. And I think it's meant to be somewhat problematic in the book itself, but it's like extra level because of the more modern day perspective we have on these characters. Like obviously, it's like from this perspective, it's very thought provoking. Like it makes you really think about the characters and what's going on. But at the same time, because we have these type of stories being told, it's still starting to blend together. I read one review on Goodreads that says it's basically a telenovela, like a soap opera that you watch on TV. And that probably is an oversimplification, but in some ways it's kind of true because I mean she was writing this in sort of a serialized form to be entertained. Because of that, it does feel like we're sort of getting reshaping stories for this bigger lifespan. I mean, obviously, like it's the first novel, so it's not going to be the most well-edited, well-structured thing in the world, but it's just I've lost a little bit of interest. At the same time, not enough to want to put it down, and it's definitely hurting my reading this month. And at some point I'm going to ask if I'm really going to prepare to do this, but I've already put so much time into this, I'm not ready to give up on it. It's just, I give my entire month to this book, and I want to keep trying. We'll see if it happens. Hopefully by the time this vlog is over, it'll happen, and even though I'll have read only 2 books, 2 books, I will have accomplished something really, I think, really intimidating, very difficult. This isn't your average book, nor is it your average month for me, from like a personal perspective. Everything about this is just different. Still disappointing on a large scale because of the planning I have involved with my TBRs and books I want to read. But you know, these are unexpected life challenges, right? But that's my update right now for this vlog and for this book that I'm reading. Do you consent to being on video? Do you consent on being on video? I can blur your face out.
Who cares? Nobody's gonna see it.
I have thousands, 1,100 subscribers.
When are you gonna have this congestion thing about?
Hey, you see this? Isn't that weird? It's okay.
Okay. I didn't.
If you will listen, you will go far. This is your father and his mother.
Alright, everybody, come on! You know what you're doing, kids? You guys are manning the phone banks.
What would you say was the best and worst thing about having me here?
What I liked least is when you came in from town. The best part was when you left town.
Hi.
Hi,
So we just came back from our...
Starbies!
What are we doing?
We're going home, to my home.
I'm going home. I'm going home. Please tell the world that I'm going home. You know, listen, footage is fucking useless. I'm sorry, I just checked. It is Sunday. It's Lord's Day. Going to see the new house. It feels awkward. I'm gonna keep doing it though. I'm very behind in the books that I'm reading, as I'm sure they care about. I did not get any reading done last night because of certain individuals who will be alluded to, but not named.
I literally raised my hand.
Cheyenne, please, you're interrupting my footage again. That's it. We have to start over. So I might not finish Survivor. I might even make it a live show. This sucks. I hate it so much. It's not a good reading month. My family is ruining my life, and I'm going to get a hotel. Y'all are supposed to laugh at that, otherwise it's weird. Hello everyone, what time is it? 1:30. I have a meeting at 2, so let's try and get this over with. Did I finish reading all the books, all the 2 books that I had hoped to read? No, I did not. I'll go ahead and tell you that now. The move down here was, I wouldn't say hectic or chaotic, but it was time consuming. I underestimated the amount of time that I would end up investing in basically just visiting my family, even though I'm going to be here for a month, if not more. You know, the first few days is always hard not to just treat it as a regular visit, so I did not get much of any reading done. And I'm not sure if we've spoken since Sunday, which was the live show for TV Butler Slow Read. For this time it was Survivor, and unfortunately I did not get a chance to read that. I had wanted to go to the live and even participate in it with Jerry, and I think I had alluded to the fact that I would on Friday, and I didn't go Saturday night, and I feel kind of bad. I don't know if she had any extra people, and I really wanted to join in on that. Unfortunately, I just didn't have the time, and because of that, I also didn't have time to finish Survivor before the live show. I think this is the first live show that I've gone to and I haven't finished the book. I don't think it ruined it. I have some ideas of what's coming now, but it definitely reshaped how I'm going to look at the book, and it'll be interesting to see what I think about it as I finish it, now that I have some new perspectives in it. I think one big one is that it's basically looking at colonizers, these missionaries, and having done to them what they might want to do to other people, basically colonizing the colonizers. And there's a little irony and satisfaction in that. I don't think I quite saw that quite frankly. Now that I mention, it's quite obvious, but I don't think I saw or noticed that comparison just yet. In my defense, I was a little confused at times, partly just because I think the story's not as well honed, which many people have said in the live show, which of course I will try to remember to link if I have the time below to Jerry's page. But in Jerry Vlog's pages, go there if you're looking for the most recent live show. They shared it. Everything is there. I would highly recommend watching those videos if you're interested in these books, or have read these books rather. But the point is that it was a great discussion. It was fascinating hearing it as someone who had finished the book, and I know I have to finish the book. I fully intend to do it. Well, at the point in my what do you call this? I don't know, reading career. The point of my visit, why I recognize that I'm just not going to be reading as much this year or during this visit as I'd hoped to, at least not yet. Granted, I'm in a new environment, so maybe I'll manage to do it, but it's been a few days now and I haven't read much since I've been here. I'm hoping to get in a new rhythm. It's just, it's hard. Being away from home, being with other people, where my instinct is to just hang out with them instead of reading. And there's a balance I'd like to find. I haven't found it yet. Nevertheless, the goal is to finish this book in June. And another book that I actually didn't even finish this month, didn't even start, was, of course, Women's Class, another book that I'm still working on. And the one I mentioned before, of course, was the Telegenji, which I haven't made any progress on, so I'm not really going to update you more than I already have. So here's a pretty long update on that. Let's just say that I'm finishing May off, having finished one book, which was a novella, and I guess now is a good time to talk about that. How to Lose the Time War. I don't think I'm going to settle on 4.5 because it's not leaving me with a 5-star material in my mind. This is about two people, these two women, I believe, who they're referred to in the she/her pronouns, who are on opposing sides of this time war, where each member is fighting for a different type of utopia or dystopia, however you look at it. And the goal is they're going back and trying to change history, and one will change the other's actions, and this is constant battle of trying to do and undo. And while doing so, these two get entangled in this exchange of letters, and we see that dynamic evolve with time in a way that I thought was very compelling and very interesting. I want to read more of the book because I do feel like there's plenty that I could have understood better. Like, I think that's a big complaint people have with this book, is that it's confusing, which is fine. I love a good confusing book because I don't think it's intended for you to understand everything to appreciate the book. And that's why, like, as someone who struggles with getting a lot of details, I like that ride of being able to enjoy the ride without necessarily catching everything. And then it encourages, I think, the reader to go back and want to reread, to really appreciate the world, because it's so fine-tuned, yet so delicately designed, like so delicately laid out for us in a way that isn't always explicit, but is so strongly alluded to, and that it's that discovery that can be really fun, I think, especially when it gives it a good book. So I read a good book this month. I guess that's good. And I'm not hating Telegenji, but because of my feelings about it, I'm not sure if it's going to get above a 3. Survivor, I don't know if I'm going to land yet. I'm confident it'll get at least a 3, but it really depends on how things evolve. Like, I'm enjoying the story well enough. It's got its problems, and even after the live show, I'm not sure exactly what Octavia Butler wanted to take away from that. Sorry, I need to clarify. Octavia Butler had this book, Survivor, discontinued. She didn't want it to be republished because she didn't like it. She felt like it was her quote-unquote Star Trek novel. And there are some ways in which I see that, but I still don't quite know exactly why she chose to do that, unless it was just for the way in which it was developed, the way in which the story, the science was designed, or if there was a bigger part of the themes or some of the plot devices that bothered her. I had some ideas based off the discussion, but I'm curious if that will get, I guess, better refined. That idea will get better refined as I finish the book. So those two books are going to be my June TBR. I really shouldn't do this because I want to do a June on my radar after this video goes up. And I'm going to try and use Quillet Readathon to at least get some reading done in June. If I can just spend that week dedicated to that, do some vlogging, and try and make a point at least for a week to get some reading in. That'll make June hopefully at least more successful than May. And in the meantime, like outside of that week, I have Survivor and I have Telegenji, and I'd love to get back to Women Racing Class too. It's been here a year and a half now on YouTube, and I'm finally at a point where I have a slug. It happens, I guess. It's disappointing. I just don't want it to sit in because I have a tendency to have a passing fad, so I get really obsessed with something and then it fades. And I really like reading, and I'm hoping it's not one of those things where I get into it and then I just start doing other things, because it's not just that I enjoy doing it, it's that it's satisfying. There's something immensely satisfying about, I guess, just investing my time into making this content and in reading these books. I really enjoy it, and I look back on it and it feels like I'm happy with what I do with my time, as opposed to when I spend hours of my time or days of my time just watching TV or listening to podcasts. It's not something I feel satisfied having done. Does that make sense? It's a personal thing of what I feel like is accomplishing something for me. With that said, I did watch a lot of TV. That's part of why I haven't finished a lot of stuff. Did I mention my Buffy rewatch? I guess that's not the point of my BookTube channel. Is talk about books. Well, either way, we're here and we're queer, and it is Pride Month. So let's close this out so I can get this up. This is counting as my wrap up for the month because I don't know. I don't have enough books to wrap up, so this is just going to be that. If you made it this far, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this. This was a fun vlog to film, even if it wasn't the most productive reading-wise. So I hope you at least enjoy a little bit of my family time. And as always, hope you all stay safe, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye, y'all.